private equity, private debt, venture capital and growth, environmental, social and corporate governance, and energy and natural resources. With 5 key topics comprehensively covered, Summit Day at SuperReturn International 2016 offered hundreds of delegates more world-class insights, research and strategies than ever before. With his expert analysis of the current challenges facing the private equity world, co-founder of the monthly barometer Thierry Malloret began the German Private Equity Summit by detailing the challenges facing investors across the globe in 2016.
The investment decisions you make as private equity, as an industry, are bound to be affected not only by economic and financial considerations, as it used to be the case in the past, but equally by societal risk, geopolitical risk, environmental risk, and so on and so forth.
But despite concerns over Brexit and migration in Europe, Thierry's analysis placed the Eurozone on a steady footing, with Germany remaining the indisputable leader of the pack.
Europe is blessed with very robust institutions, high quality of governance. Anybody who invests around the world knows that it's easier to do so in Europe than in, let's say, Africa or Latin America. And it's important to realize that this quality of institution, which in the longer term is the most important determinant of GDP growth, also functions as a shock absorber. When you have a risk of social stability, unrest, political stability, having strong institutions is really, really important because they absorb shocks in a way that other systems are not capable of doing.
One sector more affected than most by geopolitical issues is that of energy and natural resources, with some of the most abundant reservoirs in much trickier investment environments and very little slack in supply.
There is only 2% too much oil. It's not 20%, it's just 2%. So one outage or one thing which goes wrong could have a huge impact.
So what are companies doing to identify where to invest and how to mitigate any inherent risks?
The best oil fields are in difficult countries because the good oil fields in easy countries have already been exploited, most of them. So Carlyle as a group has a global infrastructure. It has offices in different places. That helps. That's one of the mitigants. I think a second mitigant in a fund is to diversify the risk over different investments. And a third one, which is very important one also, team up with the right partners in those countries. Some countries are off the list because it's just too difficult. But the countries where we do think we can make a proper and justified investment, very important to team up with local players or big international players of very high reputation.
Meanwhile, with the very latest research available to delegates, there was also a clear picture of the state of play for venture capital.
There's similar things going on in the venture industry today that we saw back in that early 2000 timeframe. I also think that there are some differences as well, in particular as it relates to liquidity. There's some differences, but both times, then and now, I would consider to be quite frothy.
Financial information platform PitchBook's John Gabbert drew comparisons with the past, described the current growing stockpile of investors looking for exits, but remained optimistic about the opportunities that persist in what is still at its heart a relationship business.
And while I do talk kind of bigger perspective macro, I mean, it still is a one-off thing. It's about finding the Facebook, it's about finding the Google, it's about finding the WhatsApp. And I think the wonderful thing about venture is it's very optimistic. If you don't believe as a venture investor that you can find these really high quality companies, the ones that are going to be outliers, then it's very hard to make a return in this business. So it is about relationships, and it is about sourcing those companies that are truly going to create value.
Do you genuinely think it still has that optimistic feel despite the backlog we've talked about, despite the difficulties about exits?
I do, yeah. And I think that venture investors and entrepreneurs by nature are optimistic. And I think that's one of the best things about the venture industry is that you have to have the dream.